Hello, everybody. Well, we're here after the Olympics to have a little discussion of some of the highlights and the lowlights of karate's debut. We've got Shihan Liam here, head of the Kumite coaching team, Sensei Declan, Sensei Trevor, and Senpai Jake, all worthy competitors in their own right. So,
and Australian team members, and
we're going to have a little chat
state
about
team members.
what we all thought about the Olympics. So, let's start with some highlights, shall we? Who wants to go first so they don't steal somebody else's? How about you, Sensei Declan? What was your highlight of the Olympics?
My highlight, I think, was the first day, particularly the fighting on the first day. But I think Stephen Da Costa, the French winner, the way he moved and then was able to kick, sweep, and attack. From his movement, it seemed like his movement made it better, whereas a lot of the time, the athletes, their movement, it would get them out of trouble, but it didn't make their attack any better. So I like the way that his movement made his attack better, with some awesome kicking as well. I think that was my favorite.
I think Sensei Trevor, and I was talking to him before, made a comment about that too. Yesterday we were having a chat about consistency of fighters and also what it takes to, if you lose a fight, especially in a round robin like that, it's a big deal with that points. It might make all the difference between whether you're going to get to go through to the gold and silver medal round, or whether you're just saying you're going to compete for bronze for someone like him. So watching him lose one of those fights and then get better as a result, not worse, not the same, but better, that was impressive too.
Yeah.
Well, definitely most people struggle with their first fight. And I haven't really seen Da Costa much. And I watched his first fight, which I think he did win. He lost his second one, right? Something like that anyway.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and his first, I thought, oh, well, he's, it's pretty ordinary. They're not that great. And then by the time it was in the final, I was going, oh, okay, this guy's really good. So it's kind of nice to know that even the best in the world and the Olympians, have the same problem, right?
Well, this is probably why that round
good in the first round.
Well, it's why that round robin format's so good, I think, too. I think you're getting a much better average result of who truly is the best in the division, most likely, as opposed to just one good or bad moment that defines, your entire tournament for you, or an unlucky draw, or whatever it is. Because we've all seen that. How many times we've seen someone who is the semi-finals happening in the second round of a tournament.
Yeah.
We're going, this is the final. These two should be in the final, but they've met in the second round, and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Sensei Trevor?
Well, actually, just a bit more on that, because, it'd be interesting to see if they carry that through, because for the Paris, if people don't know that
it's Olympics,
that this, normally it isn't round robin, it's just knockout competition, right? But for the Paris qualifier, it was only the finals that was the round robin, right? They did normal knockout until they had like the last 10 or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So I'd be interested to see if they continue that for like K1 and world championships, maybe, because it does allow for a little bit of that. You don't have to have every single round the best round, because that is a hard thing to do, especially in some of those events where you are doing like 7-8+ fights to get to the final.
Yeah,
it's hard to really, even at elite level, expect that much consistency.
Hearing that rumored, that potential for change, particularly if they're saying like the World Championships, where we may see World Championships being a much smaller contingent of athletes that have come in via those qualification tournaments.
Because of course, did Costa not deserve to win the under 67s because he lost one fight? Like I argue that he definitely still does deserve it, because he really was probably the best, consistently as well, even though he lost the one fight. Because only two divisions had, I think, winners that lost no fights all the way to the gold medal.
Well, as we've always known, there's something really interesting too when you watch certain fighters and fights, is that people, it's all about how you match up with certain opponents too. Someone is doing what their favorite way of fighting is, and against that other opponent, it's fantastic. It works perfectly on them. But then they line up with someone else, and you're going, this person has so many more skills, but their particular way that they line and they match up with this person doesn't work, and they get beaten. And you see that with for me, one of the clearest, that some of the Japanese fighters who, always linear, always very fast with their handwork. And for this particular person, you see them really struggle with them. They can't deal with the hand speed and get beaten. And then someone else with the Japanese fighter lines up, tries to fight them exactly the same way. And it's just the matchup doesn't work for them at all. And they don't change tactically.
Yeah.
There's so many things outside of the control in kumite too. Like, I mean, you've seen without the round robin, we see really good fighters lose on the technicality. Like, you know, things where you go, for all the bad luck that happened to that guy there. You know, he should really be in the final. And all he did was, I don't know, like he got pushed out of a Joe guy and it got counted as a Joe guy and it shouldn't have been. And there's nothing we can do about it. So losing, you know, one round and still be able to be in the final, hopefully absorbs some of those things that aren't the athlete's control.
It does.
Well, mistakes outside of that.
Even takes out some of the luck factor.
Yeah.
We all know luck's a part of fighting, luck's a part of, you know, competing, and we all accept that. But it's never a comfortable feeling when someone goes through to get the best result. When everyone knows who they think the best fighter is, and someone else just sort of jagged it, you know, with that one lucky kick and then one lucky moment. We can all go, that was a great kick, that was a great moment, but we all still have that feeling of, but that's the better fighter. Yeah. And so round robin really helps mitigate that too, doesn't it?
Yeah. What's your favorite moment, Trev, Sensei?
Yes, actually, sorry, coming back from that tangent. Well, I think, of course, like the entire performance and of course the finish for Ryukina, that you know, his kata performances just in general, and the way he took that gold, you know, how he was, you know, in the Budokan, in center mat, Cesar, you know, bowing in the spot, like, you know, you could just see it's like, you know, he's done it, and he goes up to, you know, Tsukamoto and just simply bows. Yeah, he bows back, and that was enough. Like, you know, it was nice, as of course, see Sandra Sanchez running up, hugging her coach, who was a husband and stuff like that. It was a great moment, and her going up to the sensei and Japanese sensei and bowing and stuff. But just that simple display of those two.
I think that's
masters of karate.
It's a wonderful thing about the Olympics in general, of course, is that some of those medal moments are the people seeing what it meant to them. We all know how much work goes in for athletes and what it means, where there's no glory in this beyond those Olympics that most people pay attention to. You have to sort of educate them that it's a big thing that person's a state champion. It's a big thing that person's a national champion. You know, you've always got to tell people about it for it means anything. Olympics is the only one we have where everyone understands the profile. Everybody, and so it's worthy that you've given away 15 years of your life, just, you know, all the time when you could have been earning extra money or building your career in something else. No, what I've done with every spare second of my time is work to become really fantastic in my little niche sport to get to that moment, to that podium, and you just see them. But there's no other way to it except to do that. You know, I think that's a very beautiful thing. And then you get something like that in the karate one, which is a medal celebration that is something that I didn't see anywhere else. It was unique, right? That was a unique moment.
I know that everyone celebrates their victories in different ways, but it's such a contrast to how Luigi Busa And I'm not criticizing him, right?
I am.
You know, like, I mean, well, you know, because it is incredible to win an Olympic gold. And the guy's been competing for a long time, and he's Italian, so he's probably, you know, but the thing, you know, I don't know, we saw Rio, like you, Trevor, that's your favorite moment, same here in that respect. And then the contrast of Luigi behind that gold medal podium when they're trying to introduce Rafael Agaev to give him his credit for silver, and Bruce is still, he's just there behind waving his hands around, like, you know. And it's funny, isn't it? Because Rio's acceptance of his win epitomizes what we think martial arts or karate really should be, you know. And such a contrast to
but it was on display, that greater value. We could all see it and feel it. We know that Rafael has been the fighter of the generation, you know, who's changed the way we compete and the way we fight, and has been so inspirational. And this is most likely, surely, his swan song. I haven't heard actually if he's announced his retirement yet, but I'm expecting that's the case. And there was something, you know, you could hear, you know, all the Azerbaijanis in the stadium were all there doing the Agaev, and now they probably have done it anyway, but you got definitely the sense of, you know, the real cry was, this is the true champion. This is the real great champion of this period. And all the athletes and competitors kind of know it. There was that sense. And I understand why Busa, who's just won the gold, doesn't want to accept that idea. It's like, hello, it's about me. And you had this competition on the podium. It felt like there was actually, you know, we just had a fight competition, and now we're in a celebration competition that's also taking place.
Yeah, I with Sensei Trevor's Rio Kuna moment, I quite liked him bringing his mother on the podium with him.
Oh, that too was.
Oh God,
That man, I lost it. That was such a nice thing.
Do we know when she passed away? I mean, was it recently?
It was. I think it was actually from COVID.
I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading about it, and I think she passed from COVID, like, maybe a year ago.
And she's very old. I mean, he's
well,
only
he's 27 or something, isn't he? Yeah.
No, he's 30 something.
No, he's not.
Real?
He's in his 20s. I was surprised. I thought he looked older. I'm definitely. We'll do
He's
someone
31.
do a quick check on that.
Fact check.
Yeah, where's Jamie?
31.
Jamie, pull that up.
Jake, what's your favorite?
My favorite moment wasn't necessarily because it was like a great karate like technique moment. I was just going back to what you guys were saying about the whole, like even to the point where what we teach the basic students about the whole respect, and that's sort of where it begins and starts. Like because I was watching with my family a lot of the time, and even to the point where they would always root for the people that would like they bowed properly, they were really respectful.
All right.
And so there was a moment where there was someone who, I won't say anything, but he wasn't very like bowing properly or anything. I was up against this really respectful person, as I was talking about. I can't remember the names.
Yeah.
It was like 3 seconds to go. It was like 4-1. The one person had Zenshu. In the last second, he got that head kick. My entire family just erupted because they wanted that person to win, purely just because they were respectful.
Yeah.
Which I think is just really sort of telling of everything that we do.
Yeah, no, you're right. I feel the same. No, I totally agree. I think as you probably don't have to be martial artists to feel that humility in someone, right? And that's very attractive, isn't it? That you want to back the person for sure. Yeah.
With that,
I just checked up. So yeah, he is 31.
Yeah.
31. Okay, so I got that wrong.
Yeah.
Fact checked.
Jamie.
Okay, is it my turn?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
before we move on,
Well, it's not
I
hard.
was just
I'm going. Sorry, Dick.
I was just going to say, with that respect, like I liked how they kept the formal bowing in, bowing to the refs, all of that. Like they didn't change it for the Olympics. They kept that nature.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that, even though they brought out the athletes one by one before each fight, that they had that proper bow at the start. Like I thought that was really good to see. They've kept the tradition and the nature of the art within that sport.
Yeah, it says more, doesn't it? It speaks beyond, it speaks beyond the frame of what you're looking at. The fight is this, but this is the culture. This is the matter of conduct and behavior, and that is karate, all of it. It's inseparable from life, like we say. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good point, Jake.
So this is not, again, it's like Jake's, it's not a highlight point, but it's something, my overall impression. And I really loved the close-ups of the athletes before they're going onto the mat, and then in between points when they're on their faces. There's absolutely no expression. Their eyes don't move off their opponent, right? There's nothing there, and they're just like that, and totally in the zone. And of course, okay, I'm a champion of women, powerful women, and when I look at some of the other women athletes and things, like the sprinters have their long fingernails all painted, and the gold and the hair,
bling,
the bling, and all this sort of stuff. And there's those women, they're like real warriors. Yeah, there's nothing fancy about them at all. They just go out in their gi. They're just, they're just totally switched on. There's no fanfare. There's no playing the crowd. There's no, you know what I'm saying? And they just got that look, and they just stay in that zone all the way through the 3 minutes. And even at the end when they win, they're happy and they celebrate, but there's none of that over the top stuff. They've just got this emotional control and focus that I love that part.
I think that that's that thing in karate and the fighting art, you've got so many things that are needing to be coming together inside that moment, that we know the mental state is just critical.
Yeah.
How your mind, your emotions, and your body are balanced in that moment, where you begin a basketball game and you can start off flat, and then you got time to shift or change, and then still have great moments, even though you played for a large period where you weren't very good. And I think the sprinters, the job is one job and very clear, and they've done it so many times. It's so small and specific and short, that period, that maybe, you know, emotionally, mentally, they feel it's okay to be kind of out here and they don't mind being there and having that, and then they drop into that zone. But for fighters, it's much rarer. You can't have your head somewhere else and then go, oh, I'll just switch in and now I'm ready to fight.
Yeah. Oh, I don't want to be naive about that. I mean, I think, you know, of course, I've watched lots of the Olympics, and of course, lots of them have to be in that zone.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
right.
the high jumper, the long jumper, you know, they've all got to be in that zone a bit. But I don't know. I just think that the coverage of them in that moment is better. We don't get that from the other sports, that moment, you know, that just, and because in the other sports, even though they're sort of in that mindset of focus, for example, if you watch the high jumpers, right, they rock back and forward a little bit. They're looking at the thing, they look down, they look at the thing, they look down, and that's their focus. I know that, but there's something about the fighter that's just standing there like that.
Yeah.
Just standing like that. Just, you know, their eyes are on the prey. That's it.
And it's a fighting art, like you said, with the prey. You know, you can't have the kind of focus on different things. You know, it's a 3-minute fight. If you don't bring it in the first 10 seconds, we saw a couple times in the final of the men's heavyweight. 9 seconds in, he's kicked in the head, 3 down.
Yeah.
Boy,
you know, you've got to be switched on immediately, or you can lose the fight within, you know, a minute.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I wonder, you know, how much, you know, the other athletes from other sports, they click in really to that fight or flight response as much? Because like as Sensei Declan said, the nature of all the combat sports, you kind of have to do it. Where like I don't necessarily, like maybe flight for running or something. I don't know, but you really click into those.
Well, it's hard to think, right? Like, let's take something like the marathon, which is a totally different kind of psychological challenge, and so the mental preparation around going into that versus a 100-meter sprint with just that one highly focused moment. You know, like it's a much shorter moment of attention required. It's a much shorter moment of demand on what you're doing. It doesn't. I'm not saying it doesn't lessen us. It's what it is. It's magical in its own way. But I don't
think, like, okay, let's compare it to the boxing. I don't see the boxers being like that. The boxers aren't like those.
So that's what I think.
They're different too. They're
some are. No, some are. Some are. I would argue some are very similar.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see them. The boxing I saw, they tend to be more. Well, they're allowed to move. They use their adrenaline, moving a little bit like a prowling animal, you know. Whereas
they get rounds as well.
Yeah,
that changes it. Where the nature of ours is like, okay, you got maybe 3 minutes. Where each moment you kind of need to be perfect, because like if you're wrong in that moment, you're 9 seconds in and you're down 3 points.
Yeah.
So it does. I think the stakes are almost.
Yeah, the stakes are. Yeah. They're built that way, aren't they? I mean, it's actually an interesting thing to pivot into now, is just to talk about the rules and the format and how we think those things work, and you know, or may not have worked, and get people's opinions on that.
Okay, well, are you going to do your highlight or not?
My highlight. Look, honestly, I'm just going to make a broad claim. I'm just going to make the highlight was, I thought it was fantastic. I really did. You know, like we've been, of course, over the years, like any karate car has. You don't want the moment when we're finally on that Olympic stage to be something which is, you know, which is even flat, let alone negative, where you go, oh, that's bad. And we all know the danger of good fighters who know each other well, who like all they have, they're all top level competitors who compete against each other many times. The stakes are so high that no one wants to lose. The real danger of that is that, you know, it becomes a stalemate. And we've all watched those finals where oftentimes in tournaments, the best fights are in the early rounds. And when things are really up for grabs, you get all the spectacular stuff, and the finals become the most boring fights.
Yeah,
that was a real danger. And for me, we didn't get through it without saying there weren't, you know, of course there were better fights and there were worse fights, and there were people sometimes who were more boring. But overall, I thought the format I thought worked fantastically. I thought the athletes engaged, and you know, for nearly to a whole, I would say, in a really positive, beautiful, graceful, powerful manner of representation of our sport. And the kata was just the perfect balance of the other side of our art, like we know it is. Like this, for me, I found it so complete and so wonderful. And I'm a lover I watch all the other combat sports. I always have. And so, you know, I'm interested in how it's going to stack up from a spectacle point of view, and how to, you know, go, what does this look like? Is it easy to follow? Is it fun as as an audience member? Would I be engaged? All the rest of it. and I was unbelievably impressed. Now, yes, I'm very biased, but like I said, I'm a student of all those other arts. So I just thought, my major highlight was just how well I thought it went. What a true Olympic sport I really think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on that positive note, I'm going to spice this conversation up a bit.
Oh.
Okay, come on, let's go to the thing that everyone wants to listen to.
Oh, no, here is my Tabasco. This is Tabasco sauce.
Come on, let's go. Let's go to the heavyweight men's final. Everyone's going to want to listen to what we say.
Oh, we go straight to the men's. Straight to the men's heavyweight. It is the most contentious ruling of the entire.
Yeah.
No, a very divisive moment, about, well, one, of course, the decision about of the referee, but just I think in general, that is it a good representation of what we're trying to show as a combat sport, or is it a bad representation? Because you see the skill and the control, or lack of, well, no, not real lack of,
Controversial.
Yeah, exactly. The skill involved in it, but then of course, you could argue, it's a combat sport. How come you're penalizing the person who did the combat thing?
Okay, there's two sides to it, right? So,
I think there's three sides, sorry, because I think there is both athletes' side, but I think there's the referee's side, and there's also the audience's side. Like we're seeing, what do audiences want? What do referees want? What do competitors want? So I think there are different sidings on this that affect it.
So first of all, it's very hard to gauge contact. We're all fighters. We've all fought, right, at high level.
Yeah.
So we know that you can be hit, and to the outside, it doesn't look that hard.
And you can't eat for a week. Yeah.
You can be hit where everyone else goes, whoa, but you go, that's not too bad.
All right.
Who knows? I don't know how it happens.
Yeah.
And of course, everyone has different levels of tolerance for contact. The thing is, though, if you, I don't know if you guys remember the first fight of the Italian. The Italian was hit by.
Which Italian? Sorry, are we talking men's?
In the under 67 men's, yeah.
7 men's, the Italian.
Got concussion,
Yeah, so he was hit.
Crescendo.
The guy was given a point. In slow-mo, you can see how hard the hit is. The hit's hit, right? Guy doesn't go down, stands on the line, doesn't even look like I think he wobbles a bit, and he gets back on the line, right?
Yeah.
And they give him the point, and he can't. That's his first round. He's out.
Yeah.
He's pulled out by the doctors of concussion.
Yeah.
And then as far as the contact for the rest of the rounds too, just to give some kind of context for the contact of the heavyweight final, right? The slow-mos were great for really trying to figure out whether the contact was hard or not too, right? Didn't you? You know how you sometimes said you can't tell, but the slow-mos were good. You can see the hit. And I thought they were very tolerant of the contact, not just the athletes, not just the referees, but the athletes were well tolerated of the contact.
Agreed.
There was no one that milked any of those points. Right. And I was proud of that.
Well, people talk about the lack of full contact or whatever. We know it's controlled contact to the head, but it's not touch. It's not this idea of touch. And the athletes are accepting a lot more. And I'm a big fan of the boxing, and I watch all the boxing, or a lot of the boxing bouts, and have for a long time, and and teach kickboxing and all those things. Well, there's plenty of karate blows going in there to the head too, which are as good and as hard and as powerful as anything that was being delivered inside the boxing ring during the tournament. Now, there's an argument about should that be allowed given our rules. But regardless, that was taking place. And it kind of,
I think it hit the right tune.
Yeah, the balance of it was. I thought they got it right too, where it still has to be real enough.
And they weren't injured. Like split lip.
Exactly.
No one cares about split lip. You get worse in training.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
it doesn't look to the audience perhaps, but we're talking about top level. So that's what I think.
And hey, sorry, just want to interject that, but people don't understand too that the karate here, this club, is very soft and absorbent. The foam density they use is specifically designed to take the impact out. Boxing gloves, you come down to the 12-ounce, there's these low ounces, the 8-ounce gloves and stuff. They're hard. Yeah. You're hitting with this, you're protecting yourself. It's not about protecting your opponent. The impact point is hard. So to deliver that kind of damage where you're busting jaws or bloody noses and lips with those big, soft, pushy things on your hand is actually, you've really got to hit things hard.
Yeah. So in the light of that, we get to the heavyweights, right? So, here we are. Was it hard?
Well, maybe we should frame it just in case there are people watching who actually didn't see the moment. We should discuss what actually took place. Do you want me to just frame what took place?
Yeah, sure.
So we're in the final of the heavyweights, and it's the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia fighter, Hamed Taregi, and he is that's right, isn't it?
No,
Yeah. Taregi Hamed.
Tareg is his first name.
Tareg. So Tareg Hamedi.
Hamidi. Yeah.
Tareg Hamedi.
Yeah.
Pardon me. And he's fighting the Iranian tiger, they call him. Ganzadia. I'm not very good at pronouncing his surname. If anyone knows it well, they can say it. No. But he's fighting him, and he was one of the lower ranked fighters coming into the top 10. He's qualified through the Paris Tokyo Hamedi, and was, for the people who were who'd watched the Paris Open, who the smart tippers out there were kind of going, oh, he's a real dark horse. He looks talented and he could do anything in this. And he went through a field where, Jonathan Horn went down because of his injury. He was the German world champion. And we've got other fancy, the Turkish fighter, who's an amazing fighter. These people all falling away, and you've got him going through, and he goes into the final, and I thought deservedly so. And he goes into that final against the Iranian, and he's up 4-1, and there's only a few seconds left on the clock, and he's got it. Everyone knows out there is no way now. There is nothing that the Iranian can do to overturn this result. I think he's even got censure at that point too, right? It's fallen with censure. He's not going to be able to overturn it. There's 4 seconds or something left on the clock, and the Iranian rushes in. Now the Iranian is mainly a right-hand fighter who always throws and slips out to the left-hand side, more into the boxing style. Oh, sorry, he's a left-hand fighter, is he?
Yeah, he was that way.
Yeah, so he's a lefty, but he always slips out to the side with the Yakuzuki position when he goes to fight. And Hamedi has read this, and so and when he comes in and tries to go low, he kicks to where he knows he's going to be, kicks to that slipping position and puts his kick there. But he's going into the technique. He's going into the technique, and his hands are down when he goes because of the punch. He doesn't have his other hand up. I've just gone completely silhouetted. Sorry, everybody. Wow. So he's gone out with his punch, and his head's there. He doesn't have his hand up here for protection or anything while he's punching. He's got this one out, and the other one is down, and he goes into where the kick is coming from, and the kick hits him, and it's lights out, and he goes down, and then he gets
the flags though. The flags go up.
The flags immediately go up, but that's what flags look. If they think it's too hard at the time, referees are not supposed to put their flags up. But if they think that it's a score, and then it's up to the person who controls the mat, the center referee you see in those bouts. It's their job to adjudicate whether they think it should be a contact or a violation or something. So they're looking to that person to decide. So everyone's seen this kick, and he goes down, and the Iranian just lies out flat on the ground, being knocked out. Now, at this point, that's what we're saying. It's very hard to see the level of contact. Is he actually out cold? And I'm watching it going, he doesn't look like he's out cold to me. He's down, he's not moving, but he doesn't look unconscious. But he doesn't get up. So the people rush in. And in karate, you've got 10 seconds to get back up if you're going to continue in the fight. Otherwise, you will be, you're going to be what we call kikend. And kikend means that unable to continue, and it will be an automatic result to the other person if you can't continue, unless you're deemed to have done something badly against the rules, and you will be disqualified. And so the other person, while kikend, will be given an award of the match. And in this instance, that's what's happened. They've disqualified the Saudi Arabian for the kick to the head, and they've awarded the match to the Iranian, who had no chance of winning. And this happens in the last 4 seconds of the gold medal bout. So this was the big controversial moment that has there. So sorry, it took me a little bit to frame all that, but that's so everyone out there knows exactly what we're talking about.
I think the big point of contention is, the opposite decision they could have made, being Mabobby, where you've moved forward, and when the refs do this, but you've moved forward without defending yourself.
Declan, just tell me what Mabobby is for a second.
So Mabobby, when you move forward, either to attack or prepare with a lack of defense. No guard, not looking at, really protecting yourself. You're just moving forward. And if you get injured or hit too hard at this point, the refs can decide that was your fault. The other person had, decent control, but you move forward with no intent of defending yourself. And really, personally, it looked like that. Yeah, he was attacking, but we know whilst you're attacking after injuring, and before, you need to be defending yourself. And he wasn't. So I think, and you can see he actually moves his head towards the kick. So personally, it seems like that, the decision could have swayed that way, being that it was his fault that he got knocked out.
Does everyone agree with that? Is anyone on the other side who thought that he should have been disqualified? It was right to go the Iranian. Just our dog's got his little squeaky ball.
No, I agree, and to be honest, I think that's probably majority opinion, right? That he moved into it, he didn't have his guard hand up. The kick was body level too, so like his head dropping to that level without protection. I reckon it was.
I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second here. My personal opinion is aligned with you guys. I'm just going to play devil's advocate for a moment. When we say that it's a bad look, people were worried about this being a bad look for karate. That here's a person who delivers this great head kick, but it's too hard, but it's a combat sport. It knocks a person out, and he loses for doing this. Now he's broken the rules in that the contact is too hard. Whether it's full disqualification, the referees have discretion. They could just give him a standard warning for a while, or they could go all the way to what we call hansokachui, the third level of warning, or straight to hansoku, which is disqualified and out. And that's the one that they did, everybody. So they chose to go to the highest level of warning to do it. So there was some room. They could have just gone for a hansokachui, which is like, that was really bad, but not worthy of disqualifying you for. So that's the rules that the referees are adjudicating on. And people are worried about the bad look for karate. Is it a bad look for karate that here's a person gets knocked out inside, this sport that's not supposed to be full contact, and this person seems to be knocked out, and yet the other guy wins and gets a gold? Is that not a bad look for karate too?
Personally, I don't think it's a bad look, because we know that, once you know how to really hit, how to punch, how to kick, hitting someone hard isn't as hard as being fast, sharp, with great power, but still controlling it not to hurt them. Picking the right, like Sensei Trevor said, the right timing, and not actually knocking them out is arguably a much harder skill to have.
Yeah, and the more important, which is what the sport's evolved to. That's what the
exactly. So I think it's not a bad look, whether the decision was right or not. I think the referees did a good job for the most part for the whole competition, with that amount of pressure on them, and a sport where essentially the whole thing is decided by referees, from the points to the warnings. Everything is based on their opinion. I think they did a great job, but I still think whether this decision was right or not, I don't think it's a bad look. That's part of the sport, and it should represent the.
Yeah, well, that's probably something that people may not understand, is that it's not uncommon to see, people knocked down and injured in karate tournaments. So why you talk about it's controlled contact, it's accepted by all the athletes stepping in that, it's not going to be gotten right all the time, and it's fairly routinely gotten wrong. So you can talk that it's just controlled contact, but you better be tough enough to be, handle the fact that someone's going to hit you too hard and you're going to get knocked down. That's a part of karate competition. Yeah.
Especially if you're not wary of your defense as you're going in.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I think potentially why it's more likely to lean on the not the best. I don't think it's going to be. That's not the nail in the coffin, I think, for WKF karate as a legitimate art or an Olympic sport. But I think it's probably a bit more skewed as not the best look, because there is something in the rules that could have gone the other way. It would be different, I think, if like across the board, everyone was just like clobbering each other and the refs were like, turning a blind eye to that. That's different, because that's obviously opposed to the rules. But there's something in the rules for that moment that could have swung it the other way. And it would be justified, I think, if they gave it to Hamedi, because they could clearly argue that, no, that was Mabobi. So
yeah, I think so too. So that Mabobi rule, we know that distinction became in there for a really good reason, because it's not always possible to control your blow, more than what you've already done. And so you're kind of making that ruling about the person. And you're also encouraging the idea of, as we say, of just not reckless abandon when you attack, because the punch that you throw in one moment can be the punch that wins you the fight. The punch you try to throw in another moment is the punch that gets you knocked out, makes you lose a fight. So karate encourages that mindset of really prioritizing defense at all times and expects that to be a part of your ritualized combat behavior.
I think you have to. It would be a nice to unpack what we think that Turkish referee, what do you think his responsibility was? Because, he had to make that decision fairly quickly. He's on the Olympic stage, and he's not an inexperienced referee. We're talking about.
No one there is. No,
with the other,
right.
as far as all the matches were concerned, this group that we're talking to right now, us guys here, we can be pretty highly critical of referees.
Of course.
Yeah.
But I think they did a great job. I think across the board.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Even in some slow motion stuff, we can see, it didn't actually score.
It's gone past.
But it's only in hindsight with the slow mo, right? So as far as the refereeing was concerned, I think it was pretty good. And the focus was on the athletes, which is very important because that's part of the sport, is that we don't have referees being the center stage. So up until then, so we're not talking about inexperienced referees. We're not talking about bad referees. We're talking about a highly experienced. And obviously they picked him. You don't get to referee the heavyweight men's in the Olympic gold medal if you're an inconsistent or unreliable referee. So we've got to think, what was he thinking?
Well,
he's obviously considered both.
His mind being right. Okay, well, you have to say we know the Mbobi rule, but let's be that this idea, I guess, Mbobi everyone, where someone has endangered themselves with their attack or their lack of defense. And so they've basically brought the extra contact upon themselves. And so we're not going to just punish the person who threw the punch or the kick. So when referees are dealing with this is typically is a behavior exhibited by less skilled athletes. Less skilled athletes are more likely to incur Mbobi warnings, because their lack of technique and their lack of prowess. You're now at the Olympics in the final of the two, of the men's heavyweight, this gold medal bout. No one's looking at the Iranian Tiger and thinking, he's low skilled, and it's not. So the presumption of the referee too, in terms of earning him a Mbobi, it's almost very surprising. There was a bout with Agaev where he got him a Mbobi when he went to finish after a takedown, got kicked in the head, and they pinged him a Mbobi. And I thought that was pretty controversial too. Because the thing is, you rarely see athletes, honestly, of that caliber ever get pinned from a Mbobi. Yeah. Because they're so good, and the referees always have that trust in them and that belief that if he gets knocked out of here, it's the other one's fault because they're such good fighters already. So I wonder about how much that much plays into the Turkish referee's head too. And
listen, there's no way these referees just turn up at the Olympics and then go, hey, how are you going? Let's go and referee. There would have been endless
discussions about what to look for and
surely scenarios. Surely at Olympic level, they would have gone, okay, what are we going to do if in the final someone is injured?
I think it's a good question. Who knows? That may not have run that scenario.
Because I tell you what, that's what they should have done if they didn't. Because that preparation for that on that center stage, you make a mistake at that level, that's death knells for your sport
future.
Who
could pick that in the last 4 seconds?
I think
what a ending.
but and maybe not for the ending, but they would have gone, what is our tolerance at this level? What are we going to do in front of all these cameras worldwide? What are we going to do if X happens?
Speaking of cameras as well, like you've got to remember that, we saw how many replays, how many slow motions. That ref saw it once.
Different angles too.
He saw it lightning speed from one angle once. And the angle he was at, he was actually behind the foot too. So he might not have seen how much moved into the kick.
That's right.
And he had to make that decision. He wasn't allowed to watch the replay.
Argument though for letting them for those sort of moments to watch the replay. I feel like can I go find a friend? I've got to go talk to Antonio.
If coaches can call a replay review, then surely the ref can. I want to watch this one, like a big moment like that,
especially in that situation.
Yeah.
But this was often people were complaining about this in regards to the missed punches that you mentioned before too, and we're a victim of our own speed in that regard. Some of the punches, it's just in real time to see the level of accuracy and what it is almost impossible for the human eye. It's just moving that quickly that the referees are going to get, there's going to be a margin of error. And so people are going to complain about it, but you have to be realistic and say, what are the alternatives? And we now try to institute headgear with sensor technology where we can bring it on. Sensor technology for, on the bodies of Taekwondo players has not worked well for the evolution of their combat art. I'm sure most Taekwondo players would agree with that. And I don't see that as a viable option. So I think that, where they're moving in towards the rules is the best of an imperfect art. Now, boxing keeps trying different iterations every Olympics to try to get better ways to get the scoring to be more accurate. Because the truth is, with these kind of combat sports, and to figure it out is always going to have a degree of subjectivity to it, and always going to be incredibly hard. And there's not going to be a perfect answer. We're not, and for now, until some other special technology evolves, we're not going to get it. And otherwise, we have to, we start becoming like gridiron or whatever, where we have to really slow the pace and have lots of timeouts to be looking at the reviews if we want to start, making more and more accurate decisions. But I'm not sure the net gain of that would be, would be a win for us. I think it would probably be a loss.
Guys, I've actually got to go and teach soon. So I was going to, let's put our focus to the future. And I don't know if you guys know, but the president of the WKF, Antonio Espinos, has put forward an appeal to have karate included in Paris in 4 years' time, because we are not included. And I don't know how much his appeal, how much weight he's got in the appeal. It's certainly, he'll be using some metrics from the Olympics. I don't know whether they can measure how many people have been watching the Olympics and engaged in the Olympics. I don't know how they do that.
Well, broadcasters all have that kind of data for themselves, so I'm sure they'll be seeking that kind of information and confirmation if they can get it.
Yeah. So, we all want to be hoping beyond hope that we can get in Paris. I don't know if they'll turn back, but just hope they do. We're not in LA. Well, we're not in at all in the future, but let's hope the appeal wins for Paris. So it doesn't mean we couldn't appeal to get into LA and then to Brisbane. So
if that moment comes, we're going to fight to get into Brisbane, march on the streets.
And look, just sort of for any of the Bbma community that's listening, and you're wondering, is Bbma in that mix of future Olympians? And if anyone's going to be moving forward to the Olympics, I'd be betting on some of you guys first, and then some of our juniors in squad. I watch those Olympics. I watch the cutter is highly competitive. I think that's really hard, only because it's so subjective and it's so perfectionistic, and there's a lot of physical genetics, I think, is engaged in being the top karate competitors. And you could say that about kumite as well. But
it's a bit like a sprinter. Yeah, you're never going to get there to the top level with a sprinter unless you're genetically aligned. And cutter is a little bit like that.
I think it's a bit like that.
Yeah.
But with the kumite, no, definitely, broader, what would you call, base of luck that could get you not just
range of tools you can use.
Range of tools, yeah. Because tactics can beat speed and power. But tactics can't beat speed and power and kata. It just doesn't go work. Anyway, so my point is, before I go and teach, is if we can get back in the Olympics, it is exciting for Bbma. I have got no doubts that we are right up the top there in Australia. I've seen it.
Well, we have national champions here in the Zoom chat. You
guys, we've seen you compete, and I watch those Olympics. Go, our boys can do that. Our girls can do that. Of course they can.
Absolutely.
So I find that very exciting, and I'm going to be doing everything I can to get those, whatever weight needs to be behind those appeals. If we can help in Australia somehow, we're going to be doing that for sure.
We are.
Yeah.
Maybe as three young athletes who train to compete in tournaments, and that idea and that psyche around it, what do you think? What do you feel about the idea of where does the Olympics sit in your mind compared to a national or a world level championship? For you guys, even just going to an Olympics, I notice for some people seems to be bigger than medaling somewhere else. Just the experience of being an Olympian. How do you guys see it for yourselves?
I think it definitely hits different. I'm not sure exactly what about it. Maybe it's just the history, the fact that it is although it's each sport is sort of segmented and separate in a way, that it's still all under the one banner. So it's not just like, this is the world titles for my sport, but this is, if you're an Olympic champion, you seem like the champion like the champion of champions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I don't watch athletic world championships.
No,
I don't
No,
watch
neither
the
do I.
yeah.
Olympics.
But I watched some of the finals for the 400 hurdles or whatever like that, and I go, wow, that was great to watch. But it still
Yeah.
doesn't make me go watch the world titles for the hurdles otherwise.
No.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think like he said, it's that sort of world universal renown. Like, you know, if you said you're a world champion or you've been to the world championships for your sport, it's like, wow, that's pretty good. But for some reason, when you say you've been to the Olympics, even if like you're a world champion, somehow going to the Olympics seems better.
Yeah, it just holds
Just
that
'cause
extra
everyone
weight.
goes, I know the Olympics. I don't know about the World Karate Championships, but I know the Olympics. That's good.
Mm. Well, yeah.
like-
So, for example, like Tessa was telling me that Australia's most successful athlete is a guy called Boyd XL. He has the most world titles of any other Australian in the history of our country, but it's in chariot, no, not chariot, like driving. So it's like a cart behind a horse and you got to like go through cones and stuff like that. Very technical skill. And he's like, I don't know, crazy amount of time world champion. So of all the world titles that Australia has, he apparently has the most.
Yeah,
But
right.
who knows about this guy? Who's Boyd XL to
No.
everyone besides, or probably even in the horse sport world, he's probably not even that well known. Only people who really maybe care about driving, but he's our most successful athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it
Whereas
definitely, but if he was the Olympic champion the most, like we all know,
Yeah.
you know, Kathy
He's very
Freeman and
wealthy
stuff
man
like that.
too, right? With all these sponsorships, if you've won 10 Olympic medals, he'd be.
Yeah.
He'd be-
But yeah, I'd wager if any Australian doesn't know who Kathy Freeman is,
No, that's right. Yeah.
you know, but
Or doesn't at least recognize the name.
yeah, exactly.
Minimum.
It's just the beauty of it, isn't it? With you know, even because there's no glory in karate competition wins. There's no real great glory. It's not. You're not going to be in some big eternal hall of fame. The world's not going to pay massive attention. You're not going to make millions of dollars from it like a golf player or a tennis player. So those things are not there. So when those athletes, and they're all around the world, and the estimated number of karate practitioners is 100 million people. There's 100 million practitioners around the world. That's an awful lot inside our sport. You know, netball's already putting its hand up for Australia in Brisbane in 32. And netball's a great sport. It doesn't at the moment have really any male participation at all, so it's only tapping into half the society for its event. But karate, you know, we're talking about 100 million people, 5 times as many people already in this sport that has a history of hundreds of years behind it, the evolution that encompasses emotional and spiritual and, you know, dimensions that of how conduct that we all know have uses that go far beyond the competition arena. So how that not can be one of the most prestige Olympic sports, and then not to give that to all these kids all over the world working and sweating, you know, in the dojos, not to, you know, it's not going to be there for everyone, but those ones who are going to give their lives to it in that way, to not, you know, to be a decision in someone else's hands, does it make enough money? Does it make enough viewing numbers? Where does it sit? And to not weigh the dreams of all those kids as above that consideration, for me, it's a non-starter. It's a bit of an you know, it deserves its place, and, you know, let's hope that happens.
Okay, we've got to wrap this up, guys. Hey, thanks for all your thoughts, your considerations.
We hope you've all enjoyed it. Everyone out there, you can. I'm sure we got your YouTube with our there on the Facebook page. You can always. We're going to be putting a little clip of this on Facebook, and this will be put onto YouTube. And if you have any thoughts or things you want to share and add to the discussion there, I'm sure Sensei Trevor and Sensei Declan and Sensei Jake will all be happy to jump online and to answer any of your questions or discuss any points with you. Unless it's negative, nasty stuff, then we're not interested.
Yeah, and anyone there that still wants to think about dreaming to be Olympics, you little kids, you've got to get into squad. You've got to start competing. You've got to start doing it now. If you listen to those athletes in the Olympics, the commentators often saying, oh, this person joined karate when they were 6 years old, you know. So, but, you know, you've got to move into that level of competition now. The earlier you do, the better, okay?
Yeah.
All right.
I think as well, like if people have enjoyed, you know, hearing us talk about stuff, if there's anything as well, like you maybe want to hear us talk about, maybe we didn't cover in the shorter thing that I don't know, I'm always happy to do this again. This is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do that.
The BBMA forum. Okay, cool.
Maybe we even start a podcast or something.
Maybe.
Love to.
We've talked about it. We've just gone. Everyone has.
Yeah.
That's right.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.
All right.
All right.
See ya.
Bye, BBMA community and everyone.